Okay, in this video we're doing a bit of a first look at the DMW-DCC18 USB-C adapter for Lumix cameras. And this isn't a sponsored video, this wasn't sent to me by Lumix, this is paid for with my own money. I got it from B&H, and the reason I got it from B&H is because they seem to be one of the few people that actually have this product at the moment. So it's a brand new product that was just released alongside the GH7. So we're just doing a little bit of a kind of like first look and how it works, and you know, if it's going to be something that's kind of useful to you. So first thing we'll do, we'll just take it out of the box. So this is pretty much what you get. You've got a dummy battery with a female USB-C connector on there, and you just get a little set of instructions inside which basically tell you, you know, that it's a dummy battery. You're supposed to put it in where the battery goes. It gives you a couple of specifications for the power requirements, which are 9 volt 3 amp, so USB-C PD power. So what we'll do is we'll just have a quick look. So I've got the GH6 here, so it's using the BLK22 battery, and that's what this is a direct replacement for. I will check in another video if this works with the older batteries like the BLF19, so for cameras like the GH5, but right now we'll just check it out on here. So you can see it's essentially just a dummy battery that mimics the BLK22. Much the same as the DCC17, but that one just has a jack port, which we've done a video about in another one, so I'll kind of link to that. But yeah, this is kind of built to have compatibility with essentially any BLK22 battery camera. So that's the S5, S5 Mark II, S5 Mark IIX, the S9, I believe the GH5 Mark II uses that battery as well, G9 Mark II, GH6 and GH7. So what we'll do is we'll just pop this into the camera. So we've removed the BLK22, put this adapter in, and then what you'll find is, depending on what camera you've got, this might be slightly different. So some of the cameras have like a kind of rubber grommet around here or on the inside or outside, where you just sort of pull it away and then you can feed the cable through that. The newer cameras, or some of the newer cameras, have this kind of circle that you can kind of pull out, so like a rubber circle, and then you just sort of place the cable through that. And I mean, this is one of the nice things about these cables, that essentially it's made by Panasonic, so they've made it to fit these ports properly, and a lot of third-party ones just don't. They just don't work properly. I mean, it's worth noting that weather sealing, even though it does fit through nicely, and you know, it's kind of as good as you're going to get, weather sealing for the camera obviously goes out the window as soon as you start using external power like this. So you know, that's one thing to bear in mind. If you're going to be working in kind of adverse conditions, then just stick to the internal batteries and don't kind of go this route. So once you've got that into there, what you're going to need is a USB-C PD cable, and it's important that it is a USB-C PD cable and not just, you know, a cheap cable from eBay or Amazon or AliExpress. It has to be a proper cable, and I'll link to some of those in the description. But if you're not using the correct cables, then the odds are that it's not going to power up properly. So the reason you probably get this really is to use it with a V-mount battery, you know, like an external battery that's potentially powering other things. But we'll look at a few different options here. So like, we've got a couple of power banks, a smaller Anker Nano, we've got a bigger Anker power bank, a couple of different V-mount batteries, and also Power Junkie V2 as well there. So what we'll do, if we just have a quick look at this, so potentially what you could do, let's say the first example, you pack this cable in the bag just in case you potentially forget to pack a spare battery, or you don't have you haven't packed a battery at all, which, you know, would not be ideal, but it's just an example, you know. So you can plug the Anker Nano actually has a built-in USB-C cable, so it makes it a really neat solution. And then what you can do is just switch the camera on and it just powers up as normal. And one thing you will notice, which obviously is going to be a problem for some people, you're not going to have any battery readout. So it's really important that you sort of understand that the battery because these are all third-party batteries, the camera can't really work out exactly what the readout is. So what you'll get on this one specifically is, I can just switch the screen back on. I've done a whole video about this power bank, and I'll link that over in the corner. But this is essentially the readout that you get on there, which is really nice. It tells you what percentage you've got and how much time you've got remaining on the actual battery. So to have it connected to something like that is about as good as you're going to get for a kind of power readout. Some of the older or bigger power banks, you just get kind of like a light display readout, so it's okay, but it's not quite as accurate as having a digital readout. So that's the sort of first kind of maybe use case for this. But what I'll do is I'll just switch it off, and it's really important you just make sure that when you're using any external power, plug everything in as it needs to be, and then make sure you're switching on and off the camera. Don't just kind of don't have it on and then start connecting cables, or it's important that you do actually switch things off in the right order, and then once things are all powered down, then you can unplug them kind of all safely. So one thing to bear in mind, like I said, the Anker Nano does have a built-in USB-C cable. Odds are you'll probably be using this with a V-mount battery or something like that, so you'll need to be using your own cable. There's not one supplied with this, it's just got a connection to add a cable. And what we'll do is, if you've got a V-mount battery that's got USB PD sort of power port on there, which quite a lot of modern ones do, this is a kind of budget one. Again, we looked at this in another video and I'll link to that, but this is just a budget V-mount battery, and this has also got USB-C power delivery, 2D taps. So, it's quite common even on cheaper V-mount batteries, or at least on sort of more modern ones, that you do get this. And you can see both of these have actually got digital readouts as well. So, they're quite nice for, you might not be able to see that, but it's got a digital battery readout. And that's quite nice, again, because you're not going to get it from the camera. So if we just switch the camera on. Now this does happen sometimes. I've got a different version of, a third-party version of this. What you might find is, if you switch it on and it doesn't work, what you'll need to do is just switch it back off again, remove the cable, and then plug the cable in again. And then this is the screen actually that you'll want, at least on the small rig one. It gives the proper power readout, and then when you switch on, it will actually work. That does happen sometimes. I'm not sure exactly the reason for that. I don't know if it's because it's trying to charge it and there's actually nothing to charge, and then it just sort of cuts off. But it does happen sometimes, so you might need to plug it in and then sort of redo the process just to get it working. But I had heard actually with the VB50, someone in the last video said you can't switch the camera on and off, which is not the case here, because you can just switch it off, switch it back on again, and it's just fine. And like I say, just make sure you're doing the kind of process of powering it down before pulling cables out and things. And this is going to be a little bit of a weak link in this, where if you're using other external power, sometimes you can have lock-in connectors and things, but for USB-C you don't really have that. You could potentially put something around this to mimic a lock-in connector, but one of the issues you might run into if you're in the middle of recording a video and then this just pulls out or comes loose or gets damaged, the video file is going to corrupt and turn into an MDT file. So with newer cameras you can actually resolve this in the camera with the video repair tool, which I'll link to up in the corner. But it's just something to kind of be aware of, if that's something you think might happen, then just make sure your cables are nicely secured and they're in place somewhere where they're not going to kind of get pulled apart. I mean, luckily USB-C cables are not particularly cumbersome, so like D-taps and jack cables sometimes can be quite big to kind of make work, whereas this is quite a nice, easy, flexible cable, and you can buy USB-C cables relatively cheap in all kinds of sizes, and they, like I say, they're quite flexible and small. So from that point of view, it's quite a nice option to use. But without going into too much kind of plugging this into loads of different things, you basically, like I say, as long as it's 9 volt 3 amp, you should have no issues powering off of things. And I've even got the this is the Blind Spot Power Junkie V2, and I was actually really happy to see that they brought this cable out, because I've used this with the third-party one I've got, and it's actually a really great option for this. You know, Blind Spot's not the only. Oh, see, that's happened again. So PD Power came up on here, and then you have to unplug it, re-plug it back in, give it a second, and then when I switch the camera back on, you can see it's working now. But it's like I say, sometimes I think it plugs it in and it's sort of under the assumption that you're trying to do a charge when actually you just want to power the camera on. But yeah, it's nice for this because I quite often use this unit, and it's quite a nice little small one. Again, you know, you can kind of mount it to the top of the camera. Other brands make these, you know, Small Rig make a adapter like this. It's essentially a NPF adapter, and I've done a video about this actually, so I'll link to that up in the corner. But it's yeah, it's a nice little solution, you know, because I've always got these Sony batteries with me, so I quite like having the option to reuse those in that way. And I don't think I mentioned actually, but price-wise, the dummy battery is in pounds, £35.99 I think it is. So I paid, I think, 45 because I had it shipped from the US through B&H. So you know, it cost me slightly more, but I'm actually really happy with it as an adapter. It's you know, it is going to do the job and do what it needs. So I don't think that's too bad really for a dummy battery price-wise. But yeah, if you want to see more about this, just make sure, you know, over the next few videos I'll be doing a few more bits and pieces. So subscribe if you want to see more about it. I'll be testing SSD, frame rates, you know, testing out a few different kind of options I can have with it, seeing how long I can power the battery for with something like a V-mount. So yeah, if you found this video helpful, give it a like. If you want to see more Lumix content, check out the playlist on this channel, and please subscribe.